So, good morning, grade 8. So, for today, we're going to discuss what is a sports article. So, a sports article is a type of journalistic text that covers essential information about sporting events, athletes, coaches, and other sports-related issues and concerns. So, a person who writes sports article, it's called a sports writer or sports journalist. So a sports article aims to capture the attention and even the emotion of its reader through interesting and unique sports stories, while ensuring that the factual details are still provided. So even if the article is about sport, it still must be fact or true. So if you are a sports enthusiast, a sports article is the type of a text that you will love to read since it will keep you updated and informed about relevant happenings in the world of sports. So according to data, if you are a fan of sports, so this kind of articles is for you. So a sports article consists of several elements that are vital in delivering accurate and complete information to our readers. Primarily, it answers to the W and 1H questions are essential details included in sports writing. Moreover, elements usually found in sports article are the following. So, a sports article now is an article that answers to the WH questions. So these are these are the elements that is usually found in a sports article. So first is the type of sport. So what sport are you going to write? So the names of the player, the teams, and other coaches involved. So of course, you must state the name of the players, their team, and even their coaching staff. Next is the date and the venue of the game. So when and where it happens. So the game highlights, so the most interesting part in a game, and lastly the score or the final outcome, the result of the game. So however, it is important to make note that sports articles are not only limited to covering games and sports events. It can also feature a particular athlete, coach, or sports category. So provide a commentary or opinion about an event or performance, or offer up insights and commentaries on games, players, and programs. As such, a sports article can be categorized as sports news, sports features, and sports editorial. So, when we say sports news, it is the most basic form of sports writing. So, it directly narrates the important aspects of a game, such as the players or teams involved. So, the date and the venue, the final score or result, the team that won and lost, the highlights, and even what the star or the prominent player did. So when we say sports news, it is basically the most basic form of sports writing. So it is the most common type. So when we are writing sports news, we we state or we write what generally happens in that sport. So you must include again the player, the team, where or when, and how the game ended. So next is the sports feature. So it is the opposite of the sports news. So it is a form of sports writing where the player or where the spotlight is focused on a specific player, a team, a coach, or a sports category. This kind of writing provides a different angle and perspective for the reader since the results and the play-by-play of the games are not the sole focus of the text. So in sports news, we talk about the general happenings in the sports. So in here, not only will it tell you, not also in here, it will tell you what happened in the game, but most of the time, this is where the story behind the game is stated. So what is the background of the player? What is the background of the coach? What is the background of the sport? Something like that. And lastly, sports editorial. This form of sports writing covers the opinion or insights of the writer about a particular game, a player, or a coach. It may include comment ranging from game expectations that were not achieved to emphasize to not from game expectations that were not achieved to emphasizing determination and teamwork that a particular group may have. Basically, it is a breakdown of something related to sport and critique to persuade. So when we say sports editorial, just like what we've discussed before, it is a writer's opinion. So the only difference is in sports editorial, the writer should give their opinion regarding on the sport. So they can give their opinion or criticism towards the player, even the coach, or even the game itself. So that's the only difference. It is about opinion about the sports. So now, let's proceed with the guidelines for writing a sports article. So this is what you need to remember when you are writing your own sports article. First is choose an angle or highlight of your selected sports category. So you must only pick a specific topic. That way it cannot be ramble or it cannot be confusing towards your reader. Next is from your chosen angle, write your lead or introductory paragraph. It must catch the reader's attention and hook them into reading the whole story. So after choosing your topic, you must start with a very interesting lead. So when we say lead, it is the first paragraphs that you write. So that way you can hook or capture the attention of your reader. So that way they can read the whole story. Next is while the rules for brevity and simplicity should still be followed for the most part, sports writing affords you more leeway to be creative and dynamic with your language and syntax. So unlike any other writing, any other writing or news, so in sports writing you are allowed to be much more creative. So this means that you should feel free to use some figurative language or strong words every once in a while to add color to your writing. So meaning, you need to add color to your story by using those makata words like like that. So makata words. Next is make sure you use sports lingo all throughout. Some basic terminologies usually reserved for sports include foul, buzzer beater, game winner, tiebreaker, and do or die. It is crucial that you familiarize yourself with those terms if you want to write compelling sports articles. So when you are writing down a sports article, you must be familiar with the words that are related to the sport. So for example, in basketball, it includes foul, buzzer beater, game winner, tiebreaker, or do or die. So those words are used most often in a basketball game. So if you use those words, of course the readers or the listeners should have an idea on what sports you are writing. Next is in writing sports news. In writing sports news, keep track of the scores and the result of the game, which are necessary in crafting your story. So, of course, you are writing a sports. So, basically, you are writing a sports game. So, the result of the game is one of the most important parts of your writing. Next, include direct statements or quotes from players, coaches, and other personalities where applicable and appropriate. So if there is an appropriate time to use the words that you gotten from a player or even their coaches, so you must use those words. So that way your writing can be more convincing to your readers. And lastly, come up with an interesting or dynamic headline or title. So gaya nga ng na-discuss natin from the past few days, so a title is the main focus or the main thing that can capture your reader, that can capture the interest of your reader. So it must be interesting or dynamic. Now that we're done with the writing of sports news, let's now proceed with ensuring veracity of information. So journalists in whatever field are duty bound to present only accurate and truthful information. It still applies to sports writer. So this non-negotiable and is holy grail of journalism. They cannot just make up details or concoct stories out of their imagination. This is also the reason journalists need to be vigilant when it comes to gathering information about an event or subject matter they are writing about. So gaya nga ng ulit-ulit ko nang sinasabi during our past discussion, journalism must always be factual. So journalists must only state facts or the truth. So they need to double and triple check to make sure the details are true and accurate. They must also make sure that all pieces of information are viable. So a journalist must be sure that what they are writing is actually true. Otherwise, if they present false information or spread misinformation, they will lose their credibility. No one will believe them anymore. So they will also most likely be punished or fired from their job. First, they might get slapped with a lawsuit due to the fact that they are spreading misinformation towards other people. These constants need to present only the truth and nothing but the truth is why legwork matters to us, to journalists. So legwork is the steps, pamamaraan ng journalists to take to gather information for their story. It can involve going to the site of an ongoing event. So they will interview the people directly in there. So they will talk to people about the topic they are talking about and research other pertinent information related to it. So a journalist can go to the site of the happening, so that way he can gather more viable information from the people that is actually involved in that event. So the goal of legwork is to ensure that comprehensive, true, and accurate information is gathered for the article to be written. So ang goal daw ng legwork is to get the most accurate information to be written by the writer. Since journalists are expected again to write articles that are objective, credible, and reliable, they must also be transparent about the sources of their information. As such, journalists are also expected to state their sources, something all writers need to do when writing non-fiction. So when we are writing down something as a journalist, they must state where they got their informations from, so that way the other people or our readers can also verify if what you are saying is actually true. There are several ways of presenting sources of information. You can quote them verbatim, for instance, as long as you attribute the quote to the right person. You can also paraphrase what was said, but with proper attribution as well. You can also summarize, making sure you state the source explicitly. So when you are gathering information daw po, you can quote, paraphrase, or even summarize what the other people or the source or your source have told you. Next, journalists may sometimes choose not to name their sources to maintain confidentiality and privacy. In certain situations, they use phrases like a source with direct knowledge of the transaction or according to a source who wishes to remain anonymous. So this can be necessary for various reasons, such as potential danger to the source of their identity is disclosed, or if they are not authorized to speak on a matter. So journalists daw po is allowed to not reveal their sources if they have a proper reason. For example daw po is if the source does not want their identity to be exposed publicly, so this can be dangerous or even life-threatening. So that's why some journalists cannot disclose the source of their information. So instead, they use phrases like a source with direct knowledge of the transaction or even according to source who wishes to remain anonymous. And lastly, journalists have a responsibility to safeguard the identities of their sources, but they must also ensure that the information they provide is accurate and reliable. So that's it for our discussion for today. So I hope that you have learned something from me, and if you have any other questions, please feel free to ask me in our GC. Thank you, great day.